Welcome to Faith 2020's Roundtable with Hillary Scholten, congressional Democratic nominee for Michigan's 3rd congressional district. I'm really excited to talk with her today. My name is Reverend Adam Phillips. I am Executive Director of Faith 2020, and we are choosing hope over fear this election year. We're talking about the intersection of faith and all of the issues that truly matter to us when it comes to our values as Americans, as people of faith, as voters, thinking about, of course, public health and education, thinking about all of the division in our land and how we might find ways that we can come together and bring healing. So I'm really glad that Hillary is with us today. I first learned about Hillary through some friends actually in Western Michigan, Christian leaders and community leaders that were saying you really need to check out this congressional race. It's really exciting that Hillary is running. Um, and I just wanted to introduce Hillary for folks that may not know her story. Um, Hillary is a mom, and she is a many generational Western Michigander. She comes from a long line of Michiganders who actually immigrated from the Netherlands. She also worked in the Obama administration at the Department of Justice, and she is a person of faith. Really excited that she can be with us. She says she's running for Congress.
I'm having trouble hearing you.
She says she's running for Congress because we need a leader who is committed to putting forth common sense solutions to the pressing problems facing Western Michigan, from housing shortages to a national immigration crisis. Hillary, welcome to Faith 2020. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having these incredibly important conversations right now, Adam.
Thank you. So, Hillary, could you maybe just share with us a little bit about why you're running for Congress and what your plan is for Western Michigan, and
Yeah,
especially when it comes to um, uh, heading back to DC, hopefully in 2021?
yeah, absolutely. So, Adam, as you mentioned in the opening about my bio, as a woman, a mother, civil rights lawyer, a person of deep faith, everything that I care about, everything I get up and fight for is on the line in 2020. And we're at such a critical crossroads right now. I did not want to look back on this time in our country, in our community, and know that I didn't do everything I possibly could to improve the lives of those around me. I was born and raised in a pretty conservative Christian Reformed community here in West Michigan. I didn't know a Democrat until I was a senior in high school. I think running for Congress as a Democrat is not something that was ever top of my mind. But it became running and serving my community in this way became ever more apparent after you mentioned a little bit about my background serving in the Justice Department, and I took a stand and left in 2016, and I know we're gonna talk about that a little bit more. Um, because I saw the policies at odds with our the oath that I took to defend the Constitution, and my moral compass. And I knew that I needed to do more during this critical time to serve my community and our country. Over these last several years, I have just seen people here in West Michigan deeply hurting from lack of access to affordable health care, to the toxins that run in our water here in West Michigan, environmental problems that disproportionately plague communities of color. Um, and I see a government that is decreasingly responsive to the needs of the people. It has never been more important now that we elect leaders who both have the experience to lead and get things done and the empathy to make sure that the policies we create will positively impact the people on the ground who need it most. Healthcare is one of the most important issues in our country for a reason. And in a district like mine, having affordable and comprehensive healthcare is truly a matter of life and death for so many. We're in the middle of a global pandemic. 5.4 million Americans are without health insurance because of job loss. We need to find solutions to lower overall costs and increase access, and make sure that we are expanding on the gains of the Affordable Care Act and creating a public option for individuals who want it, who can access it, that's not tied to someone's employment. We're seeing right now all of the reasons why that's a bad relationship to have. Protecting our water here in Michigan is also a top priority of mine, from PFAS chemicals that are increasingly polluting all portions of the district, to a ravaging lead crisis that we have here in the 49507 region on the southeast side of Grand Rapids. These are issues that demand justice, and justice with expediency. The coronavirus has highlighted such stark inequalities and our need to make smart investments in our communities through critical infrastructure developments, ones that will also create and bring new jobs to our district at a time when we need it most. These are some of my top priorities in Congress.
Thank you, Hillary. The clean water crisis is often portrayed as something that happens in sort of certain kinds of neighborhoods or certain cities, but I've really appreciated your commitment to continuing to talk about it. It's still an unsolved matter, certainly in Flint, which is outside your district, but also it sounds like it's going on in your district as well. What are some practical things that we can do to change that?
Well, I think that there are a number of different causes for the water contamination. When we talk about lead in Flint, as well as here in Grand Rapids, it is an infrastructure issue. We also have a large portion of the contaminants coming from paint. So, making sure that we have the resources we need to rebuild the infrastructure to get those toxins out of homes, particularly for individuals who don't have the resources to take care of it themselves. It's a major public health issue, it's an environmental issue, and it's one that we as a community have the resources to solve. So, holding polluters themselves accountable when they are responsible for putting those toxins in the water. We saw with the PFAS crisis, one of the biggest hurdles was giving the EPA the power to hold the polluters accountable to pay for restoration and cleanup, rather than having the taxpayers foot the bill, but by having it be a government-sponsored cleanup. The PFAS action plan that passed in the House just last year did exactly that. I think that those are just some very practical, common sense solutions to addressing this crisis. Additionally, when we look at contaminants like lead, we know already the long-term effects of lead, and children who are exposed to lead early on will have lifelong learning disabilities most often, and other related health crises. So making sure that in affected communities we also have services in healthcare and in our public schooling to attend to those needs. When it comes to PFAS, there's a lot still unknown about the long-term effects and what manner of exposure, different manners of exposure does. And so additional funding for research and development, I think, is also critically needed.
You talk about water as kind of a moral issue, and we also are, and I know a major part of your story is the immigration fight for immigration reform and justice, or at least just decency when it comes to our policies. I'm a pastor and a church planner, and I live in Portland, Oregon. And in 2018, I was part of an effort with clergy to demonstrate in front of ICE. It was all peaceful, nonviolent. we were singing and praying. And they ended up, we were protesting that 100 of our neighbors in Central Oregon were detained illegally, it was determined, in ICE facilities. And so we actually got arrested for that. And that was one way that we thought we could bring about change. Thankfully, those 100 folks were released. But theories of change abound. It's not just protests, but it's also policy.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, could you talk a little bit about that? And then I've got a follow-up question from Melissa Steck, who works on immigration justice with the Christian Reformed Church. But can you maybe tell us your story about why you resigned in protest around the immigration policies?
Yeah. So, I think it's important to note too that, when I worked at the Department of Justice, I was not a political appointee. I worked there during the Obama administration. We worked on, the policies of the Obama administration, but I worked alongside Republicans and Democrats alike. And, we had a common goal of making our laws more just, more fair, more humane. We had systemic and collaborative approaches to coming up with common sense policies that, many times were the result of months, even years of work, of study and revision. So much of that work did not always result in policies that I agreed with 100%. In fact, there was many things that I disagreed with about the policies of the Obama administration, especially when it came to immigration. But my job was always to work to try to make our laws more just, more fair, more humane. And really my decision to leave was because I saw such a different style of leadership ushered in, one that ruled by chaos and fear, one that through rhetoric as well as policy orientation was directly targeting some of the most marginalized among us, immigrants and refugees. It was my second weekend in office when the Trump administration announced the Muslim travel ban. And, I watched as my fellow non-government lawyers rushed to airports around the country to try to free doctors, nurses, grandmothers, mothers, who were stuck away from their families, their patients, and in secondary detention with no idea what was going on. It was ruled by chaos and disorder. This policy came down, with no warning, no guidance. We had no idea what was going on. And I realized that, there were going to be a lot more people that needed a good attorney who was willing to put the rights of people before any particular party or agenda. And so I made a difficult decision to leave rather than uphold these policies that I felt challenged my oath to protect the Constitution of the United States, and also compromised my own moral compass. Everything from the Muslim travel ban to family separation are just a legacy of truly inhumane policies perpetuated over the last 4 years. And we talk a lot on this campaign. It's not about right versus left. This doesn't have to do with the Republican Party this and the Democratic Party that, but focusing on issues of right versus wrong. So those are the reasons why I chose to leave and come and be an advocate for our community here and the people who really needed a champion beside them during these challenging 4 years.
It almost feels like the cruelty is the point in some of these policies to stoke that fear. So there's so many of us though that are saying now's the time to choose hope and change, and really grateful for your courage to make that decision.
Thank you.
I've got
hear it every day on the campaign as well. I really can't emphasize this point enough that it's not that there is one party
Right.
who is exempt from this. We
Right.
see, I talk with my 10 and 8-year-old all the time about how the parties have changed over time. And
Hmm.
here in West Michigan, so much of the movement that we're seeing towards our campaign is people who are feeling politically homeless right now,
Yeah.
people who feel like, their party has left them and they don't know where to put their political values. And we are building something new here in West Michigan, a new political home for people who feel homeless, for people who feel like they have never been a part of the process before,
Mm.
people who feel disillusioned by what's happening in our country and don't know what to do about it. The recent research from an outside group of this district showed that showed that 3/4 of the district feel that the country is on the right track under current
Mm.
leadership. So 3/4 of the people just don't agree with what's
Hmm.
happening, and they want to do something about it. Um, I am a low ego mom, practical, solution oriented, and I want people to know that I hear that and I want to do something about it, whether it
Mm.
be immigration or fixing our roads or addressing healthcare. I think people are really sick of just so much of the division and name calling and want someone who is going to be willing to say, this is wrong and we're going to do something about it.
We've got one more question just to stick with that immigration theme for a second, and it's more of a local, like what is the impact locally here? So we've got Melissa
Mm.
Steck from the Christian Reformed Church.
Hey,
She's going to join
Melissa.
on video, and she works in the Office of Social Justice on immigration
She's fantastic.
advocacy. Yeah, I'm really excited that she can join us here. Melissa,
Hi.
Hi.
Hi,
welcome.
Hillary. Good to see you.
So good to see you.
Yeah, I so appreciate, just first of all, I really appreciate what you've been saying about just bringing this back to the human aspects of this and your perspective in the Department of Justice and as a mom. And just thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah.
So in my work doing faith organizing around immigration, we often hear from folks, especially here in West Michigan, that they're confused about like what's with the hyper focus on immigration when we are in West Michigan.
Yeah.
Isn't immigration the thing that's happening at our country's southern border? We're far away from that. Could
Mhm.
you help us understand how this is a local issue and what you are hoping to do about it when you are in Congress?
Yeah, absolutely. What a great and timely question as well, because I think that there are many, many ways where this national issue impacts us on the ground here locally. I hear from employers all the time about how they have issues with their labor force, not having enough workers, not being able to being hamstrung by the H-1B process or the H-2B process, and finding really amazing talent that they want to keep on and help grow their business, but they are they're either cost prohibitive for continuing forward, or they just can't figure it out, or there are delays and lags in the system, and they're again, from agriculture to tech to the medical industry, this is something I hear across the board. We know that when we have open and welcoming policies at a national level, at a local community level, our communities thrive. That's crucially important right now as we are, looking at how we're going to dig ourselves out of this economic recession. Immigrants contribute culturally, socially, and economically to any community that they join, and we as a community can help foster healthy communities by creating welcoming and open spaces. That's just one way. Another way that I've really seen this play out directly has to do with a lot of is very timely right now as we think about revisiting police community relations. As Immigration and Customs Enforcement has looked at ways to enforce policies across the nation, increasingly, they have shifted a large portion of their enforcement onto local law enforcement officials at the city or the county level. And this puts local law enforcement in a really difficult position. One, it takes up a huge chunk of their budget, which, already is, I know, especially here locally, law enforcement is looking at ways that they can, engage in better training, better oversight to be more responsive and accountable to the community. Here you have a massive federal agency with sufficient resources to do this work themselves, and they're pushing it off onto our local law enforcement. Additionally, it diverts their attention from the things that they're supposed to be doing, which is keeping our communities safe. When they're acting at dual purposes, it can sow fear and trust in the community. And I've worked with local law enforcement and community members on this, and nobody wants that. And this is the responsibility of lawmakers in Washington to solve. This does not need to be pushed off onto our communities and our law enforcement to hash out between them. So
thank you for that question, Melissa.
Yeah, good question.
Appreciate it. We only have a few more minutes, and I know that you've got a busy day. So I just had a kind of a final question around what are some of the myths you've had to dispel, either running as a Democrat who's evangelical, or just as a woman of faith that is a Democrat.
Oh man, do we have a half an hour more?
Yeah, we'll schedule another one for this. Yeah.
Adam, we need a whole nother session.
Right.
Openly talking about being a Christian while running as a major Democratic candidate for Congress in 2020 is culture shocking, and I hope culture changing. I think it's culture changing for Christians and for Democrats. I know I didn't know a Democrat who was a Christian until I was a senior in high school. And when I learned, I was like, you can do that?
Right.
So I really think, we have seen one party hold, the reins on, what it looks like for Christian values to go vote. I don't believe that there is, and I know that I hope all of my fellow Christians would agree. The Bible does not prescribe one political party. Discerning Christians can choose for themselves if they are Republicans or Democrats. But it's important for me to talk about this so that my fellow Christians see there is a different way for your faith to look when it gets up and walks around and starts thinking about policy implications of what we believe. And I think it's important for Democrats to understand too that Christianity doesn't always look like storming Lafayette Square and turning tear gas on protesters to stand in front of a church with a Bible. That is the antithesis of our faith. And it is so crucially important that for me, that I speak out against that and show individuals that the values that I learned of justice and compassion and mercy will lead me to make sure that we are protecting the vulnerable in our society, and that we're not using our faith as a weapon of oppression to hurt people and to instill dominance of one particular faith over another. A question that I get a lot is, she talks about her faith, no, separation of church and state, and it's like, well, of course, the separation of church and state. Right now we have a concept of talking about your faith in the public square that, is absolutely at odds with separation of church and state. You know, the president of the United States using the military to create a religious photo op for himself is absolutely not separation of church and state. But I also think it's not a violation of the Establishment Clause to tell your voters what motivates you and who you are as a person. I talk about being a mother. I talk about being a lawyer. I talk about the civil rights work that I've done. And I talk about being a Christian. These are all personal issues to me that make up who I am and motivate me. And more than anything, I want the voters in Michigan's 3rd congressional district to get to know me personally, because who we elect at this next stage of our election matters so crucially.
I couldn't have put it any better, Hillary. Thank you for that strong word, that empathic word too. That, as people of faith, we're not following this strong man, but we're following the Prince of Peace. Well, this has been a great conversation. Maybe we can get you on another time before November. But we're really grateful for your time. Hillary Scholten, running as a Democratic nominee for Michigan's 3rd congressional district. Good luck with your race. And where can people find you online?
If folks are interested, one of the benefits of this pandemic, a lot of challenges to campaigning in a pandemic, but one of the benefits is it's really opened up a lot of ways that folks can get involved from the comfort of their own home. We have a lot of opportunities to make phone calls, send text messages for us, and we're going to have a postcard writing campaign soon too, if you're at all interested. So if you want, you can learn more and get involved at HillaryScholten.com. I think Grace, my staffer, is going to pop that website right up in there. I think she put the email in there too. Oh, great, it's already in there. And thank you all so much for having me. This is such an important conversation.
Thank you so much, Hillary. We are Faith 2020. You can check us out, faith2020.org. We're about to announce a major partnership to do some digital and radio ads across the country. So check us out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Faith 2020 US. Thanks for joining us. Choose hope over fear. Bye, Hillary.
Bye.